Helmets on for safety. Welcome back to Random, and today we're talking about a problem that California has. Well, to be fair, California actually has a lot of problems, but chief among which for today's video is going to be the green energy problem that pretty much the entire world is facing, but particularly California. So wind turbines, right? Supposed to be the greatest and best solution to our energy problems we face today. Well, wind turbines have a couple of big problems, chief among which, one, you have to build them someplace where there's a lot of constant wind. And two, the wind turbine blades. Now, we're going to get a little more in depth about that particular aspect of the problems with wind turbines. Okay, so the wind turbine blades are composites. Right, so that's things like carbon fiber, Kevlar, fiberglass in resin matrices, all right? So that's good if you want to build a lot very quickly, because what you use is molds, you use autoclaves, you use different high-speed manufacturing principles and techniques to make a lot of turbine blades quickly. The pros of wind turbine blades being made out of composite are actually pretty significant. Number one, they're very lightweight. Number two, they're easy to produce and they're easy to build and manufacture. And they're relatively easy to make, to balance once they're actually made. Now the cons of composite wind turbine blades. First off, they're not recyclable. That means if a wind turbine blade is damaged to the point where it is no longer usable, you can't take that wind blade and break it down into components to put into a new wind turbine blade. They're also non-biodegradable. That means basically exactly what it says, non-biodegradable. So you can put it in the ground for hundreds of thousands of years and it'll still be a wind turbine blade. And if my editor does his job correctly, there should be a picture of just that over here. Wind turbine blades are also easily damaged, right? So things like bird strikes, obviously, even overspeed conditions. So if the wind turbine is actually spinning faster than it's designed to, it can cause fatigue cracks in the blade and ultimately fail. There's a couple of videos of that online. You can look them up here on YouTube later. Now, wind turbine blades also require very fine balance from tip to tip on the assembly. All right, so that means the entire assembly has to have a certain tolerance for vibrations back and forth, because if one blade is heavier than the other, it causes up a frequency, a resonance in the entire structure of the wind turbine assembly, and that can lead to catastrophic failure. Again, there's videos of that on YouTube, just look them up in your own time. Okay, so that's the pros and cons of wind turbine blades, one of a few solutions in green energy that we have today. Now, we have another solution for energy production in the United States, and that is photovoltaic cells, otherwise known as solar cells, all right? Now, these have been around for a minute. We'll say the late 80s, early 90s, solar cells have been a thing. What it does is it takes sunlight, typically, and it transforms sunlight into electricity with solar cells. Now, these solar cells are typically silicon crystallets with a few other components in them. Let's see. Cadmium, telluride, copper, indium gallium, selenide, and amorphous silicon. Basically, heavier elements in a molecular compound inside a silicon crystal structure that uses light from the sun to create electrical energy. That's how solar cells work. Now, there's good and bad with solar cells. The good, produce clean, renewable energy through collecting solar radiation. The cons, because of the constituent elements of solar cells, they're harder to produce, You have to have the materials on hand in the first place, so that means either mining or refining or recycling or getting a hold of the components you need and producing the solar cells, which if you're using rare earth elements, that's harder to do. It's getting harder and harder because, well, we're mining it constantly and it's gonna run out soon. Probably quite a bit sooner than you'd like to think. The processes used to make solar cells can often be toxic. They can be, they use lots of really caustic chemicals to produce and refine the ores necessary to produce solar cells. So you have to do something with that waste. And at present, there isn't a whole lot in the way of solar cell recycling yet. That doesn't mean it's not possible, it just means that it hasn't happened yet. So that's one thing we have to work on. Now, solar cells, their best efficiency, at least commercially available, is between 21.5% to 24%, depending on where you are in the world and how much sunlight you get on a regular basis. Now, in terms of overall efficiency, yeah, that's pretty low considering other forms of energy that we have available at the moment. Does that mean solar cells will continue to be that efficient? No, we can make them more efficient. It's just going to take more time. Now, the efficiency of a solar system, at least electrically speaking, is determined by how big the array of solar panels is. How efficient they are, which at present not very efficient, so you need a lot of solar cells to produce a certain amount of power, which is why you see enormous solar farms in places like California, Texas, Nevada, and so on and so forth, where you got a lot of open space that's not really being used a whole lot. So that's what they'll do. They'll put huge solar arrays out there. Solar farms is what they're called. Now, again, the efficiency of each solar cell only amounts to a certain percentage, right? Well, the reason is because those solar cells are only capable of harnessing energy from a small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, meaning if we were able to use the entire spectrum of electromagnetism, if we were able to use every frequency of light to produce electricity with solar cells, the efficiency of each cell would go through the roof, and solar power would effectively be our solution to the energy crisis. Unfortunately, we haven't really worked that out yet. Rumor has it in the toy box at that one corner of Groom Lake we're not supposed to talk about, they might have already figured that out, but you didn't hear that from me, and you certainly didn't hear that from my editor, provided he's still around. So those are potential solutions to our problem. It's what we call green energy solutions. Well, there is a third alternative, but because it involves a buzzword that Volt Billu, no matter who, jackwagons, they don't like, we can't really use it. And that option is nuclear. Now, hold on a minute. I said nuclear, that's right. Now, when I say that, you usually typically think of uncontrolled nuclear explosions and reactions causing mass destruction, right? Well, yeah, unfortunately, that is very possible. That's basically what everybody thinks of when they think of nuclear. But what we really want is thorium-fueled nuclear reactors. Now, thorium is a radioactive element that produces thermal heat to boil water to create steam to turn a generator, just like any other nuclear reactor fueled with uranium. The big difference is, there's a couple. First, with a thorium-fueled reactor, it cannot be used to create nuclear weapons. Second, thorium produces exactly the same energy for exactly the same amount of time as uranium. The difference is the waste products it produces have a half-life that is half of what uranium's byproducts are. So, produces the same amount of power, cannot be used to make nuclear weapons, and produces waste that has a much shorter half-life than uranium. Why aren't we using thorium instead of uranium? Well, the reason for that actually goes back to the Cold War. America and the Soviet Union wanted nuclear weapons. They wanted more nuclear weapons than the other. So the easiest way to do that was to use uranium-fueled reactors to produce plutonium, to produce enriched uranium for those nuclear weapons. And again, with a thorium reactor, you can't do that. And at the time, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy said, well, we can produce energy and nuclear weapons, or we can just produce energy. We want to do two things at once, so we'll use uranium instead of thorium. Which, yeah, it's kind of a, we'll have to go over that in another video. But yeah, so clean energy. It really depends on the processes and what you use and how you do it. Now, making wind turbine blades, producing solar cells, unfortunately, those processes actually take quite a bit of energy, and because of the materials involved, they also produce quite a bit of waste that is difficult to handle and difficult to deal with ultimately. So it's a trade-off. Yes, you can get clean energy with wind and solar power, but you have to produce the constituent components in such a way that it doesn't produce a net negative at the end. Meaning, if you have a toxic byproduct from making your wind turbine blades or your solar cells, who does that really help? And the answer is, it doesn't. So if you got anything out of this video, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. We'll probably have another video out here shortly, probably talking about something like, I don't know, the uselessness of the U-2. God, what a piece of crap aircraft that was. And as always, folks, keep it random, and we'll see you later.